And welcome in, everybody, to Hoopsville. I hope you are having a good December here on December 12th. And you may have noticed no open tonight. We are in the process of maybe getting a new one, so we apologize if you were looking forward to that. Also saves us a little bit of time. Welcome into Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you are having a good evening, as we said. Lots to talk about across the board, to say the least. New number one team this week as Amherst lost this past weekend. And that new number one team in men's basketball, Stevens Point, survived its big test on Wednesday. We'll actually talk to Coach Bob Semling from Stevens Point here coming up on the show shortly. Also, NCAA has announced its bids for the next 4 years, and technically 5 years after this year, the 4 next years. Something, I don't know if it's unprecedented necessarily, but we certainly don't normally see that. As a result, Salem is your host city for men's basketball for the next 4 or 5 years, because 14 now and then all the way through 18. They are also the host city for the Stagg Bowl, which we are getting ready for here in, a little over a week from tomorrow. We will talk to Brad Bankston about that, the commissioner of the ODAC, who helps throw the, what's the word I'm looking for? He helps organize those. The ODAC is the member conference. Usually a city, or I should say a school or a conference hosts, or a set of schools for that matter, hosts a championship. The ODAC is the big host down there. They even help with some of the D2 championships that take place down there with the city of Salem. So we'll talk to Brad Bankston coming up about that. On the women's side, they will be going to, remember, Stevens Point this year. Calvin the following year in 15. There's a gap in 16, then Calvin in 17, and then Rochester, Minnesota, the Mayo Center will get it in 18. That gap in 16, by all assumptions, based on information that we have had for a while now, is going to be when Division III goes to the Division I Final Four like men did last year. The interesting catch here is that Division II will not be joining them. The championships have been announced, I don't remember where, for Division II, and I think that's an interesting point because I had heard all throughout the summer when men's basketball was looking to go and make this Final Four in D1 a permanent thing, or do it more often, I should say, there was talk that Division II men's basketball was all for this. But there are a lot of signs that Division II is not for this. On the women's side, they apparently are not going to go to, I think it's Indianapolis for the women's Final Four. Also, we've seen in lacrosse, Division I and Division III women's lacrosse is joining Division I, II, and III men's lacrosse in Philadelphia for 2 years. I find that interesting considering Division II is not joining them on that realm. And there's some other differences where Division II is not joining other ranks. It's very interesting. Obviously, we're not Division II. I'm not looking into Division II. But I think it's very interesting because I had heard over the summer, again, the Division II wanted to go back to the men's Division I site, and were willing to do it. Now my question is, was all that all false, and Division II doesn't want to do that, so Division III's impetus, or for that matter, partner in crime, as it were, is gone. And I have no idea the answer to that. So, by the way, I'm noticing my camera is not having a fun time with us. We will play with that as much as we can. Clearly, it's has a mind of its own, so I hope you don't mind the breakup on the video. So lots that has been covered so far. If you are following us on the show, you're welcome to email us, hoopsville@d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville@d3hoops.com. You can also join us on Twitter @D3Hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as I play with the camera one more time, try and snap it out of its doldrums. There's also a chat room right alongside right here. You'll notice I'm in there. There's some other guests in there. You can, I believe, message us as a guest. I don't think you have to necessarily register with Ustream, but you're welcome to register with Ustream as well. Please interact with us. We'd love to hear from you, want to hear what's going on in your minds. Coming up on the show, we mentioned Bob Semling. We'll be talking to him in just a few minutes from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. Believe it or not, the last time Stevens Point was the number one team in the country, this is a team that has won several national championships, was 2010, at the season after they had come off their last championship. We'll talk to Coach Semling about the significance of that, and obviously their big win over Whitewater. Imagine you're going to a basketball game. You're going to play a top 10 team. And you've decided you're going to go down, even though it's only about a 4, maybe 5-hour trip. You're going to leave the day before and stay in a hotel for the next night's game. Interesting tactic. Except it takes you 11 hours to actually get to said site because a winter storm creates havoc with your travel. Happens often on the East Coast, as I imagine everywhere else as well, but especially on the East Coast. And needless to say, that happened to DeSales in the Mid-Atlantic region. We'll talk to head coach Scott Coval coming up. What's significant is they then go out the next night and beat St. Mary's without their best players. The number 9 team in the country going down. Of course, they were number 12 ahead of that ranking, and they will slip again most likely. But we'll talk to DeSales. And they got another interesting tidbit. Do you know in the last, I think it's 10 or 11, I'll double-check the year, they've won more games in Mid-Atlantic than any other team? Pretty interesting. We'll talk to him about his program, about the big win, and about that horrific travel down there. On the women's side, we'll jump into the East region and talk to Ithaca women's basketball coach Dan Raymond. They are off to a pretty good start. They have one loss, a 20-some-odd point loss to Amherst. Otherwise, they've been the ones who've been dominating for the most part. We'll talk to Coach Raymond about Ithaca this year, talk about the challenges coming off of last year, having not been able to play at home, and how that may have affected their tournament runs. But the biggest key there is, how does the Empire 8 look this year? How does the East region look this year? They are the only team in the top 25 from the East region. They're the only team receiving votes, if memory serves, in the top 25. I think that's kind of significant. We'll talk to him about that. We talked about Salem. We told you Brad Bankston will join us. We will talk to Brad Bankston coming up in the show. Also get a little plug in there for the Stagg Bowl for any of you football fans. Little details on where you can get tickets and stuff to go to the Alonzo Stagg Bowl at the Salem Stadium in Salem, Virginia, or you can watch it on TV. We'll get those details. And then, of course, we'll jump down to the South region of Birmingham-Southern. This is a school we forgot to talk to while they were at the Hoopsville Classic. So Coach Chris Graves will be joining us on the show to talk about his team. They're off to a pretty good start as well, 4-1, but they have a challenging schedule. Talk to him about the reasoning behind that schedule and whatnot. And as you can tell, the camera does not like us this year or tonight. And if you can just bear with it flipping out a little bit every so often, we'll try and fix it. It might have to do with lighting. We'll probably have to improve some lighting down the road. So lots to talk about. We'll also throw in a Hoopsville rant. We'll talk about conference scheduling, why it's definitely becoming a bigger and bigger challenge as we move forward here with bigger conferences. But also, I think in some cases, maybe not a lot of conference creativity. I think some conferences are getting lazy with conference scheduling. We'll talk about that. And also, my theory on why I think the ECAC could be, screwing up some of the scheduling, at least on the East Coast. It's a minor thing, but we'll talk about that as well. So there you go. Lots to talk about on Hoopsville. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk to the number 1 team in the country, the Wisconsin Stevens Point Pointers. We'll talk to their head coach coming up. You are listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and then how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
And the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying the show. As we get rolling here live, I want to thank everybody for tuning in and to the archive shows, or really the pre-recorded shows that we had throughout the last couple of weeks due to scheduling conflicts, but we are back live. Quick scheduling note, we're not sure if we will be on the air next week, as we all are at D3 Sports are tied up with the Ghilardi Trophy and then Stagg Bowl events, as it were, going on down in Salem, Virginia. We will certainly make an effort. Worst case, we can at least do some interviews that we'll post up online, but we'll see what we can do. Then we take a break. Don't forget, we'll be at the D3Hoops.com Classic in Las Vegas. If you feel like taking a trip out to Las Vegas after Christmas, plenty of basketball. There'll be a total of 18 games. All those coming up. And, of course, we'll be back on the air then with Sunday and Thursday shows starting on January 5th. That is a Sunday night. And look for a special 12-hour show maybe coming up in January as well. One of those teams who will be joining us in Vegas is the Pointers. Number one, UW-Stevens Point. Bob Semling joining us here. Of course, the number one team having gotten that mantle this week. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Well, thank you, Dave. Good to be with you again.
Yes, I appreciate you taking the time. I know you are busy trying to make sure this team stays on top for the future years as well. First and foremost, number one, first time I think since 2010, if memory serves, as I call up all the info for me. That's got to be significant for the school, certainly. It's certainly significant for your program.
Yeah, it's always great to climb back up there and be thought of by the voters that were one of those really good teams that perhaps could be in Salem at the end of the year. But we have a lot of work to do, Dave, between now and then. There's so many good teams, and as you know, we've talked many times, you can be a great team, but you better be playing your best at the end of the year.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, you know, the team's always had success, but the last couple of years you've either had to run into some tough teams in the tournament or you've had a little bit of a quote-unquote down year by your guys' standards. So I'm assuming the number one ranking also has a bit of a good feeling for you guys, because it means you have maybe, and at least in the voters' eyes, risen back up to that level that everyone associates with the Pointers.
Yeah, I think that's fair, Dave, that we have been a little bit below, whether it was experience or talent level or sometimes injuries. Tyler Tillema has not played in a postseason tournament for 2 consecutive seasons, so we sure would like to have number 4 in our line come February and March.
Well, you could take the Redskins' Mike Shanahan approach, just shut them down at some point to save them, you know.
I heard about that today.
Yeah,
Is that old news?
It's the NFL. They got to talk about something all week long, and so that's what they'll talk about. Of course, you know, you achieved number one. You're 6-0 at this point. You've won handily almost every one of your games. Lawrence, Edgewood, even Hope by 20. St. Olaf and then St. Eau Claire, you beat them by, or Wisconsin Eau Claire, you beat them by 19. And then you even kind of handily beat Whitewater. Now, Whitewater went on a 10-0 run on Wednesday on you in the second half that made it interesting. You ultimately win by 12, but that game probably wasn't even that close. You guys seem early on in this season to really be playing good basketball right now.
Right. Well, first of all, Dave, I mean, when you look at scores, it's hard to tell, but honestly, we've been pushed. Lawrence pushed us, and we, you know, even Edgewood in the first half, there were moments where they were playing us toe-to-toe, and Hope, St. Olaf, really there hasn't been a team. Eau Claire in the second half, and certainly Whitewater, we tried to just beat them by 1 in the second half on our home floor, and we couldn't get that done. So, you know, as good as we are right now for an early season for a team in December, we've got a lot of work to do, and our guys understand that. We're starting to understand that we've got a chance to be good, but we've got to become a better practice team, and we've got to get rid of some of these weak areas that people are exposing.
You know, you talk about Tyler Tillema. He leads the team right now at 22.6 points a game, hauling in 4.5 rebounds, 25 assists to lead the team, shooting nearly 60% from the floor, 55% roughly, 6 of 11 from outside the arc, 77%. Of course, he's missed a game as well, but then he's got a lot of weapons that are with him. I mean, Trevor Haas, 19.3 points a game, also nearly 5 rebounds a game. You're getting 8 points plus from Joe Ritchie and Clayton Hewer. Alex Richard is offering you nearly 8 points a game. You're getting 7 more from Austin Reif and Jordan Lutz. You certainly have a depth there early on, 6 games into the season, where you've been certainly taking advantage of that, it seems. Is that everyone knows depth is key. Is that something that you guys were really hoping for this year?
Yeah, we really believe that maybe that's what held us back in the past couple of years, Dave. And this year we thought that was going to be an area that we could actually call that a strength of ours. We have 3 seniors. We have 2 all-conference guards and an all-conference center. Tyler and Trevor are among the best 2 guards in the nation. I know there's a lot of good guards, and I would like to think that we could put those 2 guys up against anybody. And then we have 4 juniors, Dave, that all have been forced into play as freshmen. And as we know, in really good leagues and at the elite level, freshmen don't play very often. And these 4 guys had to play just because of the large graduating class we had coming off that national championship year, and that year we tried to defend and got beat by St. Thomas in the Sweet 16, and then they went on to win it. But those 4 guys have logged a lot of minutes, so I really believe that that's a strength of this team, but we've got to even continue to develop that.
Certainly, you're outscoring your opponents by 22 plus. You're out rebounding your opponents by about 6. You know, the stats all say one thing. You point out the games are maybe a little tighter than the scorebook says, and certainly that is truth from what I've been looking at. You've got a team you mentioned with the 3 seniors and a handful of juniors. That's the kind of makeup that we see a lot of national champions or teams that make good runs in the NCAA tournament or in the WIAC, for example, are really steady teams for WIAC play. Obviously, you want to avoid the injuries, and certainly Tillema wants to avoid injuries as well. But when you look at this depth, do you have the guys behind them who've maybe got the ability to step up if you need to, or is that part of this kind of learning curve you guys are going through right now?
Yeah, we've got a couple of sophomores that we believe off the bench. Again, they're guards. One is Sean McGann, a young man that played for us as a freshman last year and really stepped up because of injuries and got a lot of playing time. And then Stephen Pelkoffer transferred to us from a Division II, and he's giving us really good minutes. So those are our 2 sophomores, but they're guards, they're perimeter guys. And for us to be, I think, Dave, when you see us in Vegas, you're going to agree with me, for us to really be a legitimate team down the stretch, we're going to have to develop one of those big kids. And we have 2 freshmen, Jared Jertson and Brad Freeborn, and they both have the capability of playing more like a sophomore at the end of the year, and that's going to be critical to our success. And then Tyler Forsythe, another young man that he had to take a medical hardship year. He's been hurt again this year, and that's held him back a little bit, but that's going to be the key for us, is if we can develop that one more big guy off the bench.
You know, you look at the schedule, and certainly this will be the true test. We talk about Vegas. That's kind of get me to that point. You start off with Lawrence. I think they're 2-3. Edgewood is having a decent season. Hope, surprisingly struggling. I know they lost a lot, but I think you probably expected more when you scheduled them.
What a good team, though, Dave.
Yeah.
Hope, they are so young, sophomores and freshmen, just one senior, and their future is extremely bright. I know Calvin's very good again, and I think we'll hear a lot from Hope before the year's over, and then they've got everybody back really, I think 8 of their top 9 or 9 out of their top 10 for a couple of years. So,
which is always scary.
Yeah, so we go back up there next year, and that's going to be a challenge for sure.
Yeah. Well, and St. Olaf has a winning record. My point is, St. John's coming up. They're going to be a tough test no matter their record. Then St. Thomas, then Whitworth in Vegas, then Whitman in Vegas, then North Central in non-conference play before we get into conference play again. You guys didn't shy away from the schedule this year. What's the mentality?
Yeah, no question. Every year, Dave, we try to go out and find the very most difficult challenge we can put in front of our guys, and especially with 3 seniors and a veteran team, we felt like we could put the best schedule together possible. And fortunately, you never know for sure how that's going to work out, but it's good. It's a good schedule, and we've got some of those games at home, some are on the road, some are neutral court games, but it's really going to be exciting for the challenge that's ahead of us and what we can learn from that to really become a better basketball team at the end of the season. And that's really what those games are all about coming up here on the schedule.
Let's look at the conference now. There's always been conversations about Platteville having a good year. There's been, Stout's off to a good start as well. Whitewater's certainly in the equation, but ironically they're 0-2 to start the conference play this year. How do you see this conference shaping up? And I'll admit, every time I ask that question in November and December, it never holds true until February. But how do you see this shaping up? Are you guys the top team, or is this going to be one of those WIAC seasons where 2-3 losses is going to be the top team, and you're hoping you can get enough at-large bids?
Right. And we're all anxious to see how this unfolds too, Dave. I believe that the one thing for certain that we can count on, the WIAC championship will be determined in the final week of the season. That has happened every year I've been here, going back to as an assistant coach with Jack, with Coach Bennett, and it's just the way this league is. There are just too many great coaches, too many good teams with outstanding players, and it's just grueling. Like a lot of people have shared with you, to play 2 games a week and know that sometimes you got to play 80 minutes on the road, and in a league like this, it's grueling. And no question that I think us and Whitewater, just because we've been in the race every year, but I really believe that there's going to be maybe at least 1, maybe 2 teams that get up in there. Maybe at Platteville, maybe it'll be Lacrosse, maybe it'll be Stout, or perhaps someone else we're not thinking of. But it's always interesting in the WIAC, and you don't know. You've got to get all the way through the first round and into those first couple of games before you kind of get a feel.
How interesting is it? I think half the conference is going to end up in Vegas for the D3 Hoops Classic. Certainly helps with scouting. Not that you guys don't know your teams already, but how interesting is it that you're going to have so many WIAC teams there participating?
Yeah, that just goes to show how difficult it is for us to get games, and that we're all scrambling and trying to get 2 games over Christmas to try to complete our non-conference schedule. And it's great. It's a great tournament, and it's a wonderful experience for your team and for your fans. And we all get along. We all want to beat each other, but our guys, have all grown up playing with a lot of these guys in AAU and summer tournaments and things like that. So it'll be good. The fact that each other is the best thing about it. The fact that we've got in-region games out in Vegas, that's really good for us.
Yeah, we wouldn't do that to you, Coach. We wouldn't make you have to play your own conference unless the entire conference showed up there.
That happened one year out there. It wasn't the D3 Hoops tournament, but my first year back here, we ended up playing Oshkosh in a non-conference game out in Vegas.
No, we wouldn't.
That wasn't much fun.
No, I can imagine it wouldn't be, and we wouldn't do that to you. That being said, if the entire conference showed up, we have no choice. Hey, I got to ask, though, before we let you go, you play Whitewater on Wednesday, and, of course, on the bench for Whitewater is Nick Bennett. Helps lead the Pointers to a national championship, 2 of them. How strange is that to have such a storied Pointer sitting on a Warhawk bench against you guys. The teams obviously know each other very well, and the coaches know each other very well. I don't know if Nick's necessarily bringing any extra pointers, no pun intended, to the scouting report, but I mean that's got to be a little surreal.
Yeah, well, I really thought Nick would come out of the tunnel and just accidentally go to our bench and sit down.
Was he wearing pointer colors?
Or maybe come to our locker room at halftime and just by mistake take a wrong turn. But Nick is one of our great alums. We've had so many outstanding guys that have made their mark on this program, and he's certainly one of them. And he'll always, I mean, he's got such great memories, lifetime memories from his experience. He'll always be a Pointer, but he's committed. He's loyal to helping Whitewater, and he wants to, he really has a great future ahead of him in coaching, so it's great that he's an assistant coach in a league like this at a young age, and there's just nothing but good things ahead of him.
I think he's
but
got a
was it awkward? And you know, it's probably more awkward between Jack and Sue. I mean, I've been friends, you know, with them since I was probably in high school.
Yeah.
Going back to probably, I think, 1975 in a Milwaukee Bucks camp when I first met Jack. And so, you know, it's just a little awkward, but, you know, they're just such great loving parents, and they really are behind Nick, and which they should be. And some of our fans have a hard time seeing Coach Bennett come in with Whitewater gear on.
I was going to say that, and not wearing Pointer colors. I'm sure he made sure his outfit did not have any accidental colors in there. I was going to say, I mean, he's got a great coaching pedigree, but I'd love to have been in the fly on the wall in that conversation. Hey, oh, by the way, I've been offered an assistant job at Whitewater. I'm sure that went over well. Coach, obviously 6-0, number one again, as we mentioned, for the first time since 2010, which was coming off of that national championship. I know you guys are a proud program, and it's good to see you guys. I mean, you're always in the conversation. You're always talked about in the top 25, so certainly it's not a leap to see you guys back up there. But glad to see you off to a good start. We certainly appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, so we'll let you go. But as always, we give the coach the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, just how much we appreciate what you guys do, Dave, and telling the story of Division III basketball. I spent some years at Division I, and I just think that story needs to be told over and over again, just how good the basketball is at this level. And you've seen so many great teams in Salem, and I know you agree with me, and certainly you do a tremendous job of telling that story. So we really appreciate that, all of us that are in this coaching, and the fans and the players. So continued good work for you guys.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And obviously the target is Salem until 2018 now, so we'll look forward to seeing if the Pointers can get there this year or beyond.
Sounds great. Thanks.
All right. Take care, Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dave.
Coach Bob Semling joining us from the number one University of Wisconsin Stephen Pointers. Again, number one for the first time since 2010. It was the first week of the 2010-11 season when they were ranked. Of course, they had won the title in 2009-10. And, of course, it was Amherst who lost to Emerson. That's the reason that Amherst fell out of the polls and fell to 7th. I want to thank Coach Semling for joining us. Certainly appreciate him doing that. I know he is busy, as all of our guests tend to be. It's always good to have him on the show, though. We'll keep an eye on the Pointers as the season progresses. We're going to take another break. When we come up, we're going to switch into the Mid-Atlantic region and talk about another big upset in the top 25, and that is the DeSales defeating St. Mary's after a rather challenging trip. Don't forget, you can ask questions of our guests, and you can ask questions of me, or if you have thoughts, please don't be afraid to share them. There is a chat room alongside the show. You can use that if you're watching us on the D3 Hoops page. It's kind of like down there. You can use us Twitter at D3 Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. You can also join us on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. Of course, email hoopsville@d3hoops.com. We will try and answer your questions as we go along. Like I said, coming up next, we will talk to men's basketball coach Scott Coval. Easy for me to say, about his team and their big win and their tough travel. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Back after this.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part
along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself, a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for other opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during soccer, but after soccer, that's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stagg Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.d3football.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Camera still does not love us today, so just bear with it doing all that. We have improvements, we hope, coming in the new year. Again, this will be maybe our last show of 2013. We may be able to get a show off the ground in next week in Salem, though the chances are admittedly slim. We're busy with Stagg Bowl and stuff at the D3 Sports Group, so we'll see what we can do. Worst case, maybe I can get some interviews done. We'll see, but the production work is immense down there in Salem, as it is always. We'll be at the Vegas Classic, certainly, so we'll have interviews there with every single coach, even players, following all the games there. We have 18 teams there this year. So we will certainly have plenty of coverage there. Then we will kick off Hoopsville full bore for 2014 on Sundays and Thursdays, as we normally do, 7 to 9 Eastern, plus some overtime. But we will do that starting January 5th. So stay tuned for all of that. You can always follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville. Join us also as well on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville. You know all the details, so that's where you can join us. Now joining us on the Hoopsville hotline as we switch into the Mid-Atlantic. Oh, hold on a second. Switching to the Mid-Atlantic and talk men's basketball there. And joining us is DeSales men's basketball coach Scott Coval. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Good evening, Dave. How are you?
I am doing okay, sir. I
heard you're making a trip. You're making a trip to Vegas. Smart man.
Yeah, 4 years now. This will be D3Hoops.com Classic. You should come out to it sometime.
You know what? It's a good idea. That's a good idea. I got to talk to the AD at DeSales about that.
I think we can talk him into it. Just tell him it'll probably be easier travel than what you guys did on Sunday to try and get down to Southern Maryland to play St. Mary's. This is when your SID told me about this, I could have cared less about the result on Monday against St. Mary's, which we'll talk about in a minute. But you guys decided to head out in the teeth of a winter storm that, if anybody watched any NFL games on the East Coast, certainly knew how bad it was, especially in the Philly area, which you guys are outside of. It took you 11 hours to go, 4-5-hour trip?
Yeah, it was an interesting trip, Dave. You know, I've been coaching for 28 years, and when you coach a winter sport, there's always going to be some kind of travel difficulties at some point during the year. You know, game postponements, flights, buses, whatever it may be. But my 28 years, there was only one other time that it was close to what happened on Sunday. We left Sunday at 11:45. St. Mary's is usually about a 4.5 hour trip for us. We figured we'd stop to eat lunch at 1 o'clock or so once we get through Pennsylvania. But it didn't work that way. By the time we got down to 95, there's a jackknife tractor trailer at 95. We literally sat for 3 hours, did not move. We ended up eating at about 7 o'clock and pulling into our hotel at 10:15 at night. So actually a 10.5 hour trip on the bus. And then the kicker was, you know, we get off the bus and at St. Mary's where we were, Domino's was closed, Pizza Hut was closed,
Yep.
Papa John's was closed,
Yep.
all the restaurants were closed. So basically, I walked my team over to the Shell station next to the hotel that had a little mini mart, and so we had peanuts and pretzels and that kind of stuff. So that was just a topper for a beautiful afternoon of travel.
Considering you went to a Shell station, I actually know the hotel you stayed at. Yeah, I was going to say nothing's open in St. Mary's that late, especially on a storm day. But, I mean, at what point, for starters, was the original plan to travel on Sunday, even though you're playing a night game on Monday?
Yeah, it was. We weren't going to drive down 4.5 hours and then play the game and drive home. So the plan was to drive down the night before, stay in a hotel, and St. Mary's was good. They helped us out with the hotels down there, and then play the next day and drive home, and then we'd be back for classes on Tuesday morning. But and then we knew the storm was coming. But you always hear about storms, and they predict 6 inches, you get 1 inch, or they predict 10 inches, you get 2 inches.
Yeah, it's the Mid-Atlantic.
And I will say our bus driver was awesome. And usually it's a two video trip, a 2-movie trip, 4.5 hours. Put 2 movies in, you're there. So by the time the 2 movies were over, we were still by Widener University on 95, which is about an hour from our campus. So we were. My team manager had about 15 episodes of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, believe it or not. So let's just say I've had my fill of Will Smith for the whole month of December. I'm good for Will Smith.
That TV series may have come out before your players were born.
No question. And he said, Coach, this is all we have. This is all we have left. So it popped it in, and you know what? I'm not saying I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but it's one of those things that happened during the season. The team was together. We were on the bus. There was nothing you could do. We're sitting in traffic. And who knows? Maybe in the long run that'll help us. I don't know.
If you're that close to Widener, I would have just gotten off practice there and maybe see if they wanted to play a game. Just save yourself the hassle.
Well, we were scheduled to practice at St. Mary's at 5.
Right.
And I literally called their assistant AD at about 4. I said, well, there's no way we're making it. We're still in Pennsylvania. So we didn't have practice on Sunday. And then, who knows? We played really well Monday. Maybe we should not practice for every game.
I was going to say, you then go and beat St. Mary's by 10, though that game was closer to 20 points with a few minutes left. St. Mary's made a run at you at the very end of it. You led by 1, 36-35 at the half. You outscored them 44-35 in the second half to win. And you weren't even playing with your top player.
Yeah, Mike Coleman is our most explosive player and our leading scorer, and he broke his hand in practice last week, in the middle of last week. So we didn't know how we were going to adjust. Obviously, St. Mary's is a really, really good team. They're really well coached, and I know they're really hard to beat at their place. But I will give credit to our guys. Some of our guys, we shifted roles, played a few guys in different positions, and we really miss Mike, and there's no question we miss him. He's very explosive, but we kind of made up for him and played really well.
I was going to say, how much is this maybe a game that it's that first game in the new experience, and instead of it going south, it actually goes really well. That maybe the outcome's different if your best player's there because guys aren't rallying to a common cause, maybe. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean how much can this game kind of be an example of that?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was actually we played Wilkes, one of our conference rivals, on Saturday without Mike. So it was actually our second game without him. And you're right. I mean, guys just played really well, and we shot the ball well. We do have some guys. We're a good shooting team, and again, we miss Mike. There's no question about that. We're a better team with him, but we compensated, and we're happy. It was a much happier ride back from St. Mary's than it was going down,
and shorter. Of course,
and a lot shorter.
Yeah, 83% from the field, from the free throw line certainly helped spur that win. It's not like anybody played badly. Both teams shot over 46%, so a pretty good game to say the least. Let's talk about this team a little bit. You're in your 21st season of a program that if your SID is actually correct, and I am giving him credit saying he's correct, in the last 11 season, you have the most wins of the Mid-Atlantic region. You're 11th in the country in that time frame in wins. This is almost an unsung Bulldog squad.
Yeah, we've had really good success over the last 11 years. We've won 20 or more games 9 out of the last 11 years. And we've had some really good players. Obviously, our best teams were when we had Darnell Braswell, who was an All-American, and we made it to the Elite Eight, and we were very, very good during his time at DeSales. But we've been able to sustain it, maybe not to that level, obviously, but we've been able to get some very good players. You don't win games without good players. Every coach knows that. And so we've been able to kind of sustain it and have a pretty good run. And this team, we have a lot of seniors, and they've been through a lot of different situations. And so I think that the 10-hour bus ride may not have phased them all that much. I mean, they've seen a lot of things in their 4 years. We have 6 seniors on our team, so and they all very heavily contribute to the team. So I think that certainly helped us.
Well, you talk about Mike Coleman leading the team, obviously, with 15.5 points a game, but he's missed a few games, as you point out, with the broken hand, and obviously he'll be out for a little bit of time recovering from that. But Paul Pammer, 12 points a game. Kyle Hash, 11 points a game. Nearly 10 points from Cody Deal. Andrew Kohler at 9 points a game. And then you got a whole mess of other guys who are contributing as well. The big rebounder certainly is Pammer. You guys seem to have a lot of different weapons in a couple different places. You're playing in the MAC Freedom, which isn't necessarily the biggest test in the world, but you do have some good teams in there as well. How does this team look this season? Is this another 20-win team? Is this another team that, after, that we're looking at the NCAA tournament going, watch out for the Bulldogs?
Well, I hope so, but I really couldn't answer that question right now. I think we have a lot of growing to do. We really shoot the ball well. This team, we have guys coming off the bench that can really make shots. We shoot it well from three-point range. We shoot it well from the free throw line. But we have a lot of deficiencies right now. And whether or not we can overcome some of those deficiencies, I think will tell the tale of how good our season is going to be. I certainly think we'll work towards it. I think we have great kids. The seniors that you mentioned, Paul Pammer, Kyle Hash, Andrew Kohler, Mike Coleman, those guys are very, very good kids and good character kids and very good players. So we certainly will give a lot of effort. Whether or not we can overcome some of it, we're not the biggest team in the world. We don't have a great inside game right now. We hope that develops as the season goes on. So if we can get some of those holes filled a little bit, I think we have a chance to have another good year.
Your losses are to Arcadia and Moravian. Arcadia is having a pretty good year. Moravian, it's a guess as to how they're going to do this year. You still have ahead of you Muhlenberg in the next game on the 14th, coming up on Saturday. You got Catholic in early January before you get back into conference play. You've got a couple tests there before you get into conference action. As a coach, what are you aiming for right now? What's that game that's going to say to you, okay, I know where we stand now? What's that mark maybe where you know where you stand?
That's interesting because we're a team that obviously could play very well like we did on Monday against a very good St. Mary's team. And also, 2 weeks before that, play very poorly, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And so you're looking at that and say, we have it in us to play at a level that's very, very high, as we did Monday. And we also have it in us to, maybe not play so well. So the goal for us is the game on Saturday against Muhlenberg, they're a very good team. We've had a lot of recent success against them, so I'm sure they're going to be ready to play on Saturday. It should be a very good game. Obviously, we go to Catholic. That should be a really good game for us. We've been playing them every year over the past, 5-6 years now. So those are certainly be very big tests for us. And then we get into our league, and there's some teams in our league that I think are going to develop into really good teams. So we have a chance. There's no question about it. We got to keep coming together and keep playing hard and see what happens. Hopefully with Mike Coleman coming back, he'll be back in 3 weeks. His hand is a hairline fracture. That's certainly going to help us.
Quickly about the MAC Freedom. You know, DeSales, yourselves in Delaware Valley are on top right now at 2-0. Then Wilkes after you floor them. Eastern Manhattanville, a game behind, then Kings and Misericordia. How does this conference shake out this year? I mean, we've had Misericordia win titles here. We've had you guys winning titles. Delaware Valley was in the fray last year for a good long time. Wilkes has always had a rich history. What's the makeup of the MAC Freedom this year?
You know, the thing about our conference is I don't know. When we first got into the conference, Wilkes was a Final Four participant.
Yep.
You know, went to the Elite Eight a couple times. A few years later, Kings was three-time champions. They went to Elite Eight.
Yep.
And then a few years after that, DeSales went to Elite Eight. So we've had three different teams make it to the Elite Eight or better in Wilkes' case. But the league itself, I don't know, it was top-heavy. I think now the league is there's more parity in the league, and some of the teams who traditionally have been to the bottom of the league have some very good players. And I don't know if we have one outstanding team that's going to beat in the Elite Eight or the Final Four like Wilkes was or Kings was or we were, but I think overall every night there are going to be competitive games. So it's going to be interesting. I think Misericordia is as good as anybody in the league, and they're 0-2 right now. So I still believe in the end Misericordia is a team that talent-wise is going to be as good as anybody. I just think it's every night you're going to be challenged, and that's what makes the league fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks for joining us. I know you're busy, as everybody is this time of year. I would suggest watching where you travel during the weekend. If I do notice that you are taking on Muhlenberg at home, so hopefully they can get to you on Saturday. Another storm raging for the East Coast, by the way. As always,
that's where we're 10 minutes apart, so I don't think that's going to be a problem.
You never know. You couldn't get an hour without it taking half your day, so you never know what 10 minutes means.
Yeah, it was a pretty crazy trip, and I have to rethink my schedule and plans for next year. But it worked out well.
Yeah,
I appreciate you having me on, and I think you guys obviously do a great job promoting Division III basketball. And as I'm also the AD at DeSales, so as an AD for the women's side and for the men's side, I appreciate all the work you do for us.
Well, thank you. I was going to give you the final word. Any other thoughts you want to share with those?
No, I just think this is a great time of the year. I mean, the weather can be a little iffy, as we found out, but it's basketball season, and I think coaches at this time of year getting ready for the holidays. But it's fun. We have some good non-conference games, and we get into the league. It's going to be a fun year. So again, appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you for joining me. Safe travels, and we will look forward to seeing how the Bulldogs do the rest of the season.
Thanks, Dave. Have a good night.
You too. Take care. Scott Coval joining us. Men's head basketball coach and, of course, athletics director at DeSales, as he pointed out. Team is 7-2. Again, Saturday they'll take on Muhlenberg. Then they are off for 3 weeks. Then they'll take on Medgar Evers, Haverford, and Catholic in 5 days, 3rd, 5th, and 8th of January, before they'll start a week later against Kings in conference action. Got an email from Scott Denman, College of Worcester grad of 78. Scott, if you're listening, I'll try and reply to this on air if you don't mind, and then I'll try and email you back for some reason as well, if for some reason you don't hear this. Your question about the D3 poll seems a curious affair. Emerson, Loras, DeSales have big upsets, but don't get points in the poll. Let me start there. Emerson gets a big win over Amherst, yes, but you have to look at more than just one win. You can't look at just the win and go, oh, well, then there got to be a top 25 team. We see top 25 teams across the board always lose. They're losing to somebody. Loras has 2 wins over top 25 teams. At one point, they were 2-2. The other 2 losses were bad losses. DeSales beat St. Mary's, but as we just talked to their head coach, they also lost to Arcadia and they lost to Moravian. That's not a good loss at all. So you start weighing these things. Sure, you got a top 25 victory, but that doesn't mean you're automatically a top 25 team. It could be on any given night a team wins. Emerson, they are having a good season. Let's see but they're not in a very strong conference. Let's see what happens with Emerson to see if they deserve a top 25 nod. Loras, they lost to Augustana, so really their wins over Illinois Wesleyan and North Central seem mute, and North Central seems like maybe it's an overrated win for Loras because North Central isn't what voters thought they were initially. I removed North Central from my top 25 last week, not this week, but last week, even though they won, I finally heard enough from people to say they weren't a top 25 team. And again, DeSales, Coach Coval said, yeah, they beat St. Mary's, but they lost to Moravian. You got to offset that stuff. He also asked, what's with Worcester? Very quietly, they're shadowing number one, having defeated several top 25 teams, leading to a 6-0 record. What do you see as their strengths, their weaknesses? Can they win the big games, or don't they normally choke? I am nervous about Worcester. I have them. Oh, my ballot is here somewhere. Hold on a second. I have Worcester 5th, and I've moved them up rapidly in the last couple weeks. But I have seen the Scots disappoint me. I've seen the Scots not live up to the expectations. The expectations for several years is that they are a Salem team, and they don't get there. I don't know who Worcester is this year. Yeah, they have some very good wins, but when they get into conference play, and granted they beat Ohio Wesleyan on the road, though even Ohio Wesleyan thinks they're even a little overrated themselves, Ohio Wesleyan is. Let's see what Worcester does. Wittenberg's going to be their biggest test, but they've got some other games there. I have them 5. We'll see where they go. I think they're a good team, but that question about can they win the big one, or don't they normally choke? That's, I think, a question on a lot of top 25 voters' minds, and it's definitely on mine. Worcester will play Arizona Christian and Westmont next week. Arizona Christian 8-0, Westmont 7-2. Again, they are nowhere on the national D3 poll. What do you think about these religious school teams if Worcester heads to the Buzzsaw or Cakewalk? Arizona Christian and Westmont aren't Division III schools. The 2 games for Worcester are non-Division III games. So, no, they're not going to get into the national D3 poll. That's what I think of that. I'll reply in more detail later for you if you want, but that's the thing, is some of these schools are going to... I think Worcester is playing in Arizona because maybe they have some recruits from there or some players on the team from Arizona, and I think that's why they wanted to go there. But they're playing non-Division III teams. So I would say is make sure you do your research, everybody. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to switch into women's basketball briefly. Ithaca women's basketball, to be specific. They've got a very good season underway. Coach Dan Raymond will join us to talk about that good season and discuss what he thinks of his own conference and, of course, the East region as well. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at D3Hoops.com at www.D3Hoops.com.
Division III allows you to be able to give yourself to other things. Not even just participate in them, but really get involved with them if you want to.
There's a lot of interaction. It's not just sitting back, taking notes. You're actually doing hands-on things and better preparing yourself for your major.
Choosing a Division III school, I've had the opportunity to develop my leadership skills and to be more involved on campus.
Division III in athletics, affords students the opportunity not only to participate in intercollegiate athletics at a competitive level, but also gives them the opportunity to, engage in their interests in their campus and in their lives outside of that sport and outside of the academics on the campus.
To have opportunity to have time to join clubs and being able to play basketball, it allows you to just be able to do everything you want to do. I wouldn't change it for the world.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. On a Thursday evening, December 12th, 2013. Probably our last show for 13. Not sure if we're going to be able to get a show off the air in Salem next week as we're all down there for the Stagg Bowl. But we may have interviews and such when we can. Also, don't forget, we'll be back at the D3Hoops.com Classic right after Christmas, 27th, 8th, 9th, and 30th. 3 games on the 27th, 6 games on the 28th, 6 games on the 29th, 3 games on the 30th involving men's and women's basketball. Gordon Mann, Pat Coleman, myself, I believe others will also do our interviews with coaches and players, as we always do, so that you can call those our Hoopsville vignettes during that time period. Then we'll be on the air back, as always, Sundays and Thursdays, the rest of the season starting on January 5th. If you'd like to email us questions, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/hoopsville. Also join us on Twitter at d3hoopsville. And, of course, also the hashtag Hoopsville. We certainly encourage you to use that, as it is something we want to try and emphasize on Twitter. And there's also a chat room alongside. I haven't been in there for a second. I see there's people watching, but I haven't been able to check it out just yet. We're going to go jump into women's basketball now and jump up into the East region, a place that certainly knows a lot about snow. Coach Dan Raymond from Ithaca joins us. The team is 5-1 on the season. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you taking the time to do so. Team is 5-1 overall. Your only loss was a 22-point loss to Amherst. We'll get to that later. But otherwise, you guys have been the ones who've been in control of a lot of your games, and you certainly love to score in the 70s, except for that Amherst game. In your opinion, how's the season been?
I still feel like we're finding our way. It's one of those things where each season, regardless of how many veterans you have back, there's always adjustments that have to be made. So I think that's what we're still in the process of learning and figuring things out.
This is a team that was 27-3 last year. Couldn't take advantage of their home court, unfortunately. We'll talk about that in a second. But you've won 20 games every season since 2009 and 10, and the 8-9 season it was at 19 wins. You've progressively gotten better. You've become a powerhouse out of the East, for lack of a better description. And obviously that means the target's bigger for you guys.
Absolutely. And it's one of those things where we realize that, and it's something that, because of the success that we've had in our conference and the Empire 8 Conference, our conference opponents have always, seen us as, the target. But I think more so of late, and that's due to the quality of players that we have in our program right now.
You beat William Smith and Rochester. That's a big win for you guys. Farmingdale State at Amherst, Cortland State, St. Lawrence. You've got a big game coming up, though, on Saturday against John Carroll, who's making the trip out there. They're now nationally ranked. How important is that game, especially nowadays where that game essentially counts for everything?
We're seeing it as a huge game for us, and it's a huge opportunity for us. It's the last game of the first semester, so our finals are next week. So, we want to end this first semester on a high note, and so, we see this as a tremendous opportunity for us to make a statement.
This is a squad, again, we talked about it last year, 27-3, but the conference tournament and then the NCAA tournament could not go through Ithaca due to the gym being completely redone. How big an impact did that end up being as you got through the first week, but then you had to go to Williams?
It's one of those things. I have my own opinion on this, and to be quite honest with you, and I share this opinion with a couple of the coaches on our staff, we would actually don't mind being on the road. We feel like we have more control over the environment that our players are in when we're on the road. When we're hosting, our kids are going to class every day, all day, and all that. So, I see it as not a huge disadvantage. Now, the 6-7 hour trip to Southern Maine, that may be maybe stretching it a bit.
Yeah, especially that time of year. 13th season as head coach of the Bombers. Again, 27 wins last season is a record. You got to the Sweet 16. And the loss to Williams was a thriller, went to overtime. So certainly an incredible season. You lost a bit from that squad, certainly, but how high, thus, does that make the expectations for this year anyway?
We expect very good things from this team, and they expect a lot from themselves due to the fact of the amount of experience that we have, the experience that they had from last year and going as far as they did and losing to a team that ended up at the Final Four. So, right. It kind of piqued, the interest, I guess, and the understanding that we're close. We're very close to where we want to be.
You have 5 seniors on this squad, being led by Mary Kate Tierney at 15 points a game and 7 rebounds a game. shooting 42% from the floor, 35% from beyond the arc. When she goes to the line, she hardly misses. Nearly 12 points from Catherine Campbell. You're also getting nearly 10 points from Jen Escobedo. Allie Minch is getting you about 7 points a game. You got a couple more players at nearly 7 points a game. Seems like a good deep target, though. Obviously, Tierney is one of the main targets for you guys on the offensive end. Is this depth? Is it just the senior class? Do you have other players who are stepping up to the plate? Is this something where somebody's going to surprise somebody on any given night?
Well, I think the one that you mentioned, our fourth leading scorer is Allie Minich, and she is a junior, so she's the one that's kind of our spark off the bench. For those of you who remember that far back, the Vinnie Johnson microwave coming off the bench for Detroit Pistons and stuff like that. She provides an immediate spark because of her energy. She just comes in and goes really hard. And she's become a really, really solid shooter and a really overall offensive player. Plus, she's always been a tremendous defensive player. So I think she's the one that's kind of stepped up this year.
Yeah, you don't need to bring up Detroit references to the Chicago Bulls fan. I'm just saying. At least we got 6. But you're outscoring your opponents by about 6 right now. The only flaw on this was Amherst. Back before Thanksgiving on the 24th, you lost by 22. Of course, it's tough to play at Amherst to begin with, but obviously they're a good team there. What did that game tell you about your squad? How are you using that game moving forward?
We see it as an education. One of the things that we believe that's occurred already in this early part of the season is the number of teams that we've played with different styles. It's really been kind of one of those things that every game is a whole different preparation for us because of the different ways teams have played. And Amherst, they're so solid. Everything they do, it's like, they take advantage of every mistake that we made on defense, and then they don't allow very many opportunities from their defensive standpoint.
You've got John Carroll on Saturday, and we hope that can get played. With the weather coming, you never know. You then have a game at Hanover in Indiana at the end of the year. Then you're playing. Then you get into conference play with a couple one or two non-conference games against Houghton, who actually is in conference. It just doesn't count as conference games yet. How important are the next 3 games, or 2 games, I should say, to get you ready for this Empire 8 schedule that you're going to face?
Well, the thing is, like, this one on Saturday is just, like I said, it's the end of the semester. Then we have, a significant amount of time off.
Yeah.
And then we're going to a tournament, actually, out in Indiana. We're actually going to DePaul to play up there. So we're playing Hanover in the first round.
That's what I thought. Okay.
So that's the one that's really important in prepping us, for the Empire 8, because we open with the 2 toughest teams in the conference. We open with Stevens and Hartwick. So we jump right in.
Yeah, I was going to say, and that kind of gets me there. Hartwick, Ithaca, Stevens, kind of right now on top of the conference in the sense of overall record. St. John Fisher is lurking right behind that. How does this conference shape up this year?
Well, it appears, from what I've been seeing, that it's going to be very similar to last year's in the sense that those 4 teams are going to be at or near the top, I believe, of the conference. You never know. Somebody may step up. Utica is always a team that's kind of there on the fringe and always willing to make a run at it. And Michelle does a great job up there of getting those kids ready at the end of the season. So that's another team that we have to be very, very careful of. And then, all the other teams in the conference, their preseason, their early season non-conference games are preparing them as well. So I think we're all kind of in the same boat. But I do believe that that the 4 that you mentioned are the teams that are going to be probably at the top.
Talking to Coach Dan Raymond here from Ithaca. Again, the team making the Sweet 16 last year at Williams. 5 seniors on this squad, of course, most of them all coming out of the New York area, but you've got New Jersey. You even have one from Santa Clara, California, which begs the question, how do you get Kristen Gowdy to say, yes, I want to come to upstate New York, that the weather is polar opposite, pun intended, to Santa Barbara?
It's the academics. She's here as a journalism major. We have a tremendous communications school, so that's what she's here for. That's what brought her here. And then the basketball also fit into her plans as well. But it's the academics, and that's how we have to recruit our student athletes.
I'm quite sure she's loving the lake effect snow.
Yeah, she is somebody that has skied out there. So and the first snowfall is always kind of an interesting adjustment for her.
Yeah, well, good luck to her, to say the least. She's got a couple more years ahead of her. Again, big runs here. John Carroll coming up here on Saturday. Then, as you point out, at DePaul, playing at least Hanover to start. And then Hartwick and Stevens start off the conference play on January 3rd. Certainly looking forward to seeing how the Bombers do this year. By the way, how is the new gym?
It's beautiful. I mean, people that walk in don't even recognize it, and nothing structurally was done. It's just fabulous.
Well, good. I'm glad it at least worked out for you guys in the long run, to say the least. Well, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate it. I always give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to talk a little bit about Ithaca College and our basketball program, and look forward to talking to you again down the road.
Absolutely, we'll look forward to keeping track of the Bombers, both men and women, this year.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care, Coach.
Right.
Dan Raymond joining us here on Hoopsville. They're not shying away from the schedule, everybody. Again, they played Rochester, they played Amherst, they'll play John Carroll, Hanover, DePaul, maybe. You never know. And then they get right in that conference play. Hartwick and Stevens, as he points out, are going to be tough. Utica is always in the conversation. St. John Fisher. It's going to be a fun year in the Empire 8, at least on the women's side. We'll talk about the men's side sometime down the road, but on the women's side, certainly going to look good. Again, they're the only team right now in the East region who are getting top 25 votes. Not just in the top 25, but getting votes. And I think that is a fascinating statement, not only to them, but of the East region. We'll see how voters think about that as time moves on. But think about that. Rochester's not even getting votes. That's usually a perennial team in the top 25. Of course, I say that now, and now I'm nervous that I'm wrong, but I will go through this once again. And as I go through, a reminder that Montclair State women lost their first regular season game since, I think, 2012? Lost the other night to Vassar. And it was Vassar's first top 25 victory or top 10 victory, I believe. So congratulations to Vassar. And, Montclair State will fall out of number 3 there. You remember, Montclair State went undefeated until, what was that, the Sweet 16, Elite 8 last year when they finally lost. Were unable to get to the Final Four. They couldn't play at home that first weekend, or the second weekend. It was a moot point. But due to all the gambling stuff in New York, or in New Jersey. Going through real quick, and I don't see another East region team on the women's side getting, at least in the top 25, as I continue to scan. I don't see anybody even getting votes. So, I'm sorry, there's Geneseo State. So I take it back. Geneseo State down there getting 5 votes in the women's top 25. But still, that's only 2 teams, and Ithaca's getting, versus 5 for Geneseo State. Ithaca's getting 177. So, they're one loss to Amherst. Amherst number 4 in the country. And as he points out, Amherst will get you if you're sleeping on them. So congratulations to them, to say the least. And we'll keep an eye on them down the road. Speaking of championships, we know that Salem will be hosting the men's basketball championship now through 2018. There was real concern they may not host it. And they've got the Stagg Bowl now until 2017, amongst a number of other championships. I think they're going to have like 11 Division III championships between now and 2018. We will talk to Brad Bankston, commissioner of the ODAC, about the selection of Salem and why the championship city is obviously living up to the name in the eyes of the NCAA. We'll talk to him about that coming up here on D3 Hoops, or on Hoopsville, and talk to him a little bit. We'll get a quick plug in for the Stagg Bowl. It might be a basketball show, but the NCAA championship for football is coming up here in a week from tomorrow. Who's there? We don't know yet, but we'll talk about that game coming up along with Brad Bankston. So that is all coming up here on Hoopsville. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches. We'll be back right after this.
All season long, let D3Football.com be your home for all the Division III football action on the road to the Stagg Bowl. From interactive blogs and message boards to columns from around the region and around the nation on your favorite teams, nobody covers NCAA Division III better than D3Football.com. As the playoffs approach, get the scoop on who's in and who's out from the experts who picked all 32 teams last year. Don't go anywhere else. Get the info from the source for Division III football at www.d3football.com.
Division III schools offer academic scholarships instead of athletic scholarships. This really puts the focus that the student athlete needs to maintain that GPA.
I did receive a non-athletic scholarship upon entering school.
I got the presidential scholarship, which was huge for me.
I think there's more opportunities for academic scholarships in Division III. A lot of people pick schools just based on the sport and don't get that experience.
Being a Division III athlete and developing my leadership skills has definitely put my name out there and helped me get more recognition on campus, but more recognition nationwide. I did win the Jostens Trophy, which is based on leadership, academics, and how well you do on the court.
I'm also the Schwartz Scholar of my class. Schwartz Scholarship is basically a scholarship that is given to a student who's identified as a likely leader.
At the end of the day, it won't matter how they play on the field, it will matter how they do in the classroom.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. We're at d3hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday evening. Talked a lot so far. Number one, Stevens Point, Coach Bob Semling joined us on the show. We also talked to Scott Coval from DeSales about their crazy trip to St. Mary's and then eventual win. And just got done talking to number 18 Ithaca women's basketball coach Dan Raymond. If you have questions for us, email us at hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also join us on Facebook at facebook.com/hoopsville. You can join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville, or we encourage you to use the hashtag Hoopsville. Also, a chat room alongside the show. Please feel free to use that as well. I don't think you need to register as a guest to ask a question, but if you have to, it's a pretty simple registration process. Lots of ways to join us. Certainly want you to interact with us on the show here throughout. We mentioned at the beginning of the show, we just mentioned it before the break, the big news coming out yesterday. The NCAA, a couple weeks ago had indicated who the finalists were for the for bids across all of their championships, and then yesterday announced all of them in a very different format than usual. Usually it's one of those where they tell the championship city who it is. There might be a press release. Somebody finds out. We all eventually figure it out. This time they made a big deal of it, and they announced the championship cities all the way through 2018. That is also something a little bit different. Salem gets the men's basketball championships through 2018. They also get the Stagg Bowl through 2017. They've got some other championships. Softball for Division III is coming back. I think golf is coming, which Guilford will be a part of. They've even got some Division II championships. It's certainly a topic that is always being discussed, and Salem being a championship city. So we'll go to the Hoopsville hotline now, and joining us is Commissioner for the Old Dominion Athletic Conference, Brad Bankston. Of course, ODAC very much involved in the championships at Salem. They are the presenting or the host sponsor, as it were, the entity, because there's got to be a city and a conference, and or I should say a school or a conference. And Brad joins us. And first and foremost, I must say congratulations. Oh, I didn't hit the line. Hold on a second, Brett. There we are. Now I can hear you. So I'll start over and say congratulations.
Well, I'll start over again and say it is certainly a tribute to what we've been able to do in Salem, and frankly the work that the city has been able to do from our end to continue to attract these championships, which, again, as you know, is no small feat, but kudos to the city for their work. We're just happy to be involved.
Well, obviously the city, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I read that the Stagg Bowl next Friday will be the 57th Division III championship the city has hosted. I don't know if if it's being counted the Elite Eight Final Four last year, and it probably isn't in men's basketball. That doesn't count all the Division II championships they have hosted as well. The city of Salem, has been called the city of champions. They really live up to that. And do you think that's a big reason why the NCAA goes there? It's just like they know these guys do a good job?
Well, I think that's probably a large part of it. I think for certain some of the locations may have been not in great weather locations, and that is in this bid, but just others as well. And certainly I think our geographic location in Virginia, a little south, I guess, of certainly the center of the Division III membership, but the ability for people to reach Salem, not as much by plane, but by bus at times, especially for softball and others at that time of the year, has certainly been beneficial, I think, in the bids. But most importantly, I think it's the hospitality and the professionalism that the city has kind of blazed that trail. And if you've been involved in these bids, and I've really been involved in all the championships since 1993 when the Stagg Bowl came there the first time. That was my first year in graduate school. I was at Virginia Tech in grad school and came down to help. And since that time, in the preparation of all these bids, of course, as you've mentioned previously, the NCAA kind of changed the format this time, which is a different conversation in and of itself. But, the city kind of blazed the trail. When basketball came to Salem in 1996, Buffalo had it, and I think Carey left there, and it was too much for an institution to do. And the idea or the concept of having these host cities really became a focal point of what the NCAA was trying to do. They've done it, obviously, with Division I baseball, for it seems like hundreds of years in Omaha. And then Salem kind of caught on to that idea. And frankly, to do this right, especially some of the larger profile championships that we've been fortunate to have in Salem, I think you need that professionalism and the staff at a civic center or at a facility to be able to run the championship properly. And Salem has those. They have those mechanisms already in place. And certainly from a conference perspective, we would never even be able to venture in to doing something like this. So again, it really goes back to Carey's vision and the city's vision of kind of capitalizing on this from a tourist aspect, and then being able to kind of take those first couple events and just build on them. So to answer your question, I think a lot has to do with the personalities from the beginning, and these guys have done it and done it well, and I think that's part of the reason why it continues to come back.
Jokingly, have you ever gone to Carey and said, listen, we need a break?
No, I don't think we have. Carey's group is, they're focused on what they want to do. Carey's role has changed. He's retired officially from his directorship of the civic facilities role, and now has kind of become an adjunct tourism director for the city, and is going to be there for another couple of years. And as a part of that, these bids are going to be paramount in what he's planning to do for the city. And, again, we've been very fortunate to have him around, and hopefully we'll continue to have him around for a number of years to kind of implement these things. So, no, we've never asked for a break. In fact, we were probably so crazy that the Greensboro Aquatic Center contacted us earlier in the year and wanted to bid on Division III swimming. And we agreed because of the previous relationship we have with the city of Greensboro, as well as our conference championships being hosted in that facility. So we'll be doing that in 2016 as well. So it's something we enjoy as a conference. It certainly helped, I think, increase the exposure to the ODAC since we've been doing this in the early 90s.
Well, certainly, and I think that's the key, too, is as much as Carey and John and the rest of the gang at the Salem Civic Center / the facility location there in the city of Salem outside of that have really stepped up to do good work on their end. You guys at the ODAC certainly deserve applause, too, because you guys have an integral part, because technically you're the ones who really are the sponsors. I mentioned there's got to be a school or a conference involved in this. And so you and JJ and Molly and the rest of the staff at the ODAC, and we're not talking about a conference office that's got 20 people in it. How integral is this for you guys, and how much is it now really a part of your lives?
It's, I guess, the holiday season and certainly the Christmas season has been tied to the Stagg Bowl for a number of years. We had an opportunity to talk to Keith McMillan for D3Football.com earlier today for our podcast. It's on the ODAC website. Should be up by now, and that's one of the things Keith said. It's like going to the Stagg Bowl since 1997 has been part of the holiday season for him.
Yeah.
And truthfully, it's the same for us. This is a downtime for Division III conference office. We're pretty much finished with the fall seasons. The football's at the end, and we're in basketball, but at the same time, we're kind of dwindling basketball down before the Christmas holiday, and we've got some exam periods coming up or in the midst of exam periods. So typically this would be a good time to kind of get away and to catch up on some things, but we're still engaged. And basketball is probably the most, strenuous time for us during the season, with wrapping up basketball, of course, still sometimes having teams involved in the tournament, which has been a testament to the strength of our programs. At the same time, having the spring sports kind of going full bore, and it's not as taxing on me as it really is on JJ and Molly, because they're doing a lot of the prep work from the media side and working the event. At the same time, keeping the typical things that they're doing in our office, which is related to the officiating and other things. It makes it extremely difficult during the spring, but again, it's something we enjoy doing, and most importantly, I think it's the friendships that we've developed with people across the country in all aspects, not just Division III, but at the NCAA office in Division II, that have really kind of broadened, I guess, our opportunities from a professional development standpoint. And that's the value that I find in it, outside of providing a good atmosphere for the student athletes.
The reason they're working so much, Brad, is because I'm pretty sure you're delegating well. You know to give them the work while you sit back and enjoy the holiday season.
Yeah,
come on,
they're really good people, and our conference office has been fortunate to have both JJ and Molly, and delegation is certainly something that I'm extremely good at. And but I've had a chance. I think the best part about it is I had a chance to kind of do what they were doing for the championships before they've gotten here, and and that's a value added, I guess, I can have as I train individuals, because we've had a lot of people that have been involved in these championships. It's not just JJ and Molly since 1993 with the Stagg Bowl in '96, and then all the softball started in 1994. And for the most part, every year we've had a softball championship here or there. Maybe there have been a couple of years where we haven't, but for the most part we have, and it's been a staple in the month of May for us as well.
Out of curiosity, we talked about the differences here, so I'd love to get your opinion. They in an act of transparency, which is a whole nother conversation, they're transparency showed us who the finalists were for the bids this year, which was interesting. We can't get regional rankings, but they're willing to show us the bid process. I could care less about the bid process. I care more about the regional rankings.
Right.
But they come out and say, here are the finalists through 2018, which raised a lot of questions. What do they mean? Are they going to announce all the championships through 2000? I mean, it was a lot of like, oh, what is this all about? And then yesterday, 1 o'clock, a whole mess of videos pop up, and here are the championship cities. And you guys get it through 2018 in men's basketball, through 2017 in Stagg Bowl, which is essentially the same amount of time, if anybody hasn't figured that out yet. So from your vantage point, how different really was it this time, and were you surprised that they were going to bid out and really announce out 4 years?
Well, I think part of this goes back to the leadership change within the championships side of the house at the NCAA. A gentleman by the name of Mark Lewis, who we were fortunate to have at the Stagg Bowl last year, who came down to visit and kind of see the atmosphere of a Division III championship, has a history of an Olympic background. And part of the work that he had done previously was with a number of Olympic bids. And of course, this would model an Olympic bid kind of idea of having, multiple cities kind of bidding on a specific year or years of the Olympics, and then making a formal announcement and kind of making it a big to-do. And I don't know whether all of this was Mark's idea or whether this was other things kind of going along before he got there. but the process and the concept was there. Frankly, it's good for us. I mean, we don't see it as a benefit in the bid process to receive the bid that it was going out 4 years. It's good in that you're not constantly bidding.
Yeah.
One of the things that Carrie and I have talked about through this, through all of these years we've been doing it, we would get an extended length contract, and then the philosophy changed at the NCAA where they went to almost a 2-year deal kind of agreement. So as soon as you got it for 2 years, you were turning around and you were bidding again while you were still you were just engaging in the new 2-year period that you had been awarded. So there was some difficulty associated with that too, because you never really knew, and implement new things, and you were kind of on this fragile ground as to whether you were going to keep it or not. And this time around, they went out hard on it, and I think there were a lot of opportunities for municipalities, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier. And you'll see that. You probably saw that in some of the awarding. Some of them are the same olds with Salem perhaps in football and basketball and softball and Appleton in baseball. But there are others that are really tying in this idea that not only is Louisville getting, Division I cross country or other aspects of Division I championships, they're also getting some Division III. So you're starting to see these cities. Greensboro is another fine example of that are really engaged in this process of bidding not only on swimming but on golf, on soccer, and other opportunities. And did the city lead that? Not really, but conceptually, I think because of Omaha and because of the success there, and the Salems of the world, and other places that have had some success in hosting, they've looked at these municipalities and really pushed them. And I think that's what this process was all about. It was, going out and really trying to attract these municipalities, these rec departments and others interested in hosting these events and really having this massive kind of focal point on getting it done. And I think some people bid Division I, II, and III in the process. At least some of the larger cities did, I believe.
Well, Kansas City has like 14 championships, including the D2 football one. So, you do see that. Per that Olympic note that you point out, and I know in conversations I had with Carrie and others even, they see this final bid come out, or not final bid, I should say the finalists come out, and they see Calvin is a real player for the men's Final Four. And then Salem's also in there for the women's. And, Carrie, I mean, it seemed like hedging the bets. If we're going to lose one, we want to gain one. And there's a bunch of places in line for the women's Final Four in basketball. It seemed to me in conversations, and not just with those people, but others, that there was a real nervousness that Salem could lose it because someone might say, you know what, let's go send it to Calvin. Kind of the Olympic mentality here. Was there a nervousness in your office? Was there a look at this going, wow, okay, the landscape has changed. Even the Stagg Bowl, you had the whole group of IMG behind the Braden, Florida bid, and there was a decent bid coming out of Texas, I would have assumed. Was there nervousness, or is it kind of the usual? We bid, we're always up for it.
Well, I think from a nervousness perspective, I think we're proud of the product that we put out there. And,
sure.
Most importantly, stand by that product. And if there's a municipality or another facility that are capable or is capable of doing it better, and committees make that choice, I guess first and foremost, we'd be disappointed. At the same time, we would hope that it would provide a better opportunity for the student athlete in whatever they choose to do. So, obviously, very formidable opponents in this, and at the same time, we felt like we'd done nothing wrong. So, in that process, are there things we could do and improve? Yes, we're constantly trying to strive to do that on an annual basis. At the same time, we are who we are, and we're the product that we've been able to produce. And I think more than anything else, I guess the fear factor, Dave, would have been, let's just move it to move it.
Right.
And because of the process and because of the ability for people to kind of focus on hey, we're going through this huge process, we're getting these bids, we really got to pay attention to them. Not that they haven't before, because I'm sure that they have.
Sure.
I would say the fear from my perspective was you may find some people, because these committees change, personalities change, people have had an opportunity to see the city host the event. Some had not in basketball and softball and football and others. So from a loyalty perspective, from us to the committee is certainly there, but the personal contact that we've made and established with some of the committee members might not be there with the newcomers. So, there's always that possibility. At the same time, I think we felt extremely confident, and not in an arrogant way, but I guess the longevity of how we've been doing it and our ideas and our opportunities to improve on an annual basis have come to fruition, and we felt pretty confident in the product that we've had out there. And fortunately for us, it worked out this time again.
Is there a level or is there a thought that the bar is so high now in Salem by the work of Salem, by the work of the ODAC, that the bar is so high that maybe you're making it more susceptible that it'll stay in Salem because it's going to be really hard to meet or beat those expectations?
I don't know if that's the case. I think that might have been true originally, because I believe when the city took these events over, in both situations, I'm sure they were being run very efficiently. At the same time, they really added some value to the championships themselves, so much so that there were actually individuals from the NCAA who came to Salem to talk about the process and how the city and community had engaged behind this at the Division III level.
Yeah.
And was this something that they could do at other places? So, I don't really, I don't want to get off track in the answer, other than to say that, I don't think the bar's been set too high. I think it's just has to be a focal point. I think it's extremely difficult for one institution to host some of these events and to have a facility that's conducive to it. I mean, I think about the football championship in and of itself, and I know that there were, as you said, there were probably several other bids, but Texas and Florida that were producing, I guess, the greatest challenge in the bidding process. Of course, you've got probably two things compared to us would be better weather in all likelihood.
Sure.
With Texas and Florida. At the same time, logistically, kind of what the size of the stadium, what the size of the press box, the size of the things that Salem has done with that facility and the size of that facility is pretty hard to top. It's the right size from a spectator standpoint. It's not too big. It's not too small. It has the accommodations for ESPN and a live television broadcast, which sometimes is stressful. Certainly would be stressful on pretty much any Division III facility, maybe with the exception of 4 or 5 that I'm aware of from a football perspective. And, all the other amenities that kind of go along with the Civic Center facility, with the banquet facility and the catering in-house, and some of those other things that just the city's setup lends itself to being successful in some of these events, possibly versus others. They're championships that are on the Division III slate that the city or the Valley would never have an opportunity to bid on because we don't have the right facility to be able to host it. And I think that it was the right time when they went after these events in the 90s, and they've been successful in not only effectively running them, but at the same time improving their facilities in a way in which it's tailored to that championship and to benefit the community as well. And Salem's really knocked it out of the park from that perspective.
Way past when I said I'd end things with you, but let me get 2 more questions out for you, or really 2 more things that I wanted to bring up. First and foremost, Stagg Bowl is coming up on Saturday, one of those championships that obviously is staying in Salem. We might be a basketball show, but we're Division III. If you wanted to plug and push the people to go to this thing, what are the particulars and all that stuff if people want to go to once again, a good Stagg Bowl?
Yeah, I think if they're within certainly driving distance of us and don't have a dog in the chase, so to speak, in the championship, we'd encourage you to come down. Actually, the championship's going to be on Friday night, December the 20th. It's going to kick at 7 o'clock. It's going to be live on ESPNU, but it's going to be much better live in Salem Stadium. And hopefully we have a great night of weather, and we'll keep our fingers crossed on that one. We don't want the 2009 Snow Bowl that we had instead of the Stagg Bowl a number of years ago. But, we've got a lot of things going on that week. We've got the Ghilardi Trophy being presented and the 4 finalists coming in, and that's something I know that you're engaged with that broadcast on Wednesday night. And then we've got a championship banquet on Thursday, which are all great opportunities to kind of come down and see what the best of what Division III has to offer. And from a football perspective, I think we have 4 really good teams playing and vying for the the opportunity to play in Salem with this weekend's semifinals that are going to be spectacular, and hopefully the championship will hold true to that as well.
Are you heading anywhere this weekend?
I am. I'm actually leaving in the morning. I've got an early flight out. I'm going to Belton, Texas for the Mary Hardin Baylor Whitewater game.
Oh,
and,
you're going to the new cathedral.
I'll get a chance to see in person the new cathedral. Our football officials worked the first round game in Texas and came back with rave reviews, and everything I've heard about the facility sounds like it's just they knocked it out of the park, which I'm sure that I'll have an opportunity to kind of spend some time with Randy, the AD, and have a chance to tour the facility tomorrow afternoon when I get down there for practice. So I'm looking forward to having a chance to do that. I'm
sure they'll treat you well. Before I let you go, I got a question about basketball and scheduling as a conference. I want to get past you because I'm going to rant about it later. I'm noticing a trend that more and more conferences are starting to get their conference games earlier and earlier and earlier in the season, to the point that the MIAA and women's basketball had Hope Calvin on November 19th. And I know the ASC now has 22 of their 25 games are conference games, and that's a whole other conversation. ODAC is an example I use often of a big conference who has found a nice scheduling niche where it's not a full double round robin, but there is a double round robin with most, and then there's a single round of games with the rest, and it's a rotational system, and I know it's complex. I don't want to go into that. But my question as a conference commissioner is, you've already had to tackle these things. Is there a fine line with you guys of making sure that you get your conference and the conference schedule is intact and a good one and is bolstered and needed to be as it is, and then at the same time allowing your teams to play non-conference games? And is there enough of them? And is there a fine line of when is too early to start these conference games?
Well, I do think there's a time frame of it being too early. And obviously it depends on how much of a percentage of your regular season competition are conference games. And you mentioned, I think the Minnesota League may be playing a large number of their conference games with a double round robin and a large number of members. Really, philosophically for us, I think it's ended up giving us a better result than we probably intended originally. When we were looking at expansion in our conference and we took Shenandoah, part of the thought process for us was, how can we accommodate the larger sports, and really most importantly men's and women's basketball, because of the numbers that we have, and not fill up our conference schedule with 80% or more of our regular season contests being conference contests. And somehow we ended up at 16. We looked at a number of models, and as a result of that, I think it's provided our people the opportunity to play quality non-conference competition, and perhaps, if they're successful in those contests, have a better chance to get into the NCAA tournament. That was not paramount in the AD's discussion or my discussions with other conferences about other models. Frankly, it was the ACC model that we originally looked at, and I think it's just been a result of our success in those non-conference games that we're better able to have a strong strength of schedule, perhaps, and to have some good quality regional wins. Of course, regional wins are kind of out now. Now it's a Division III game as a Division III game, but it's turned out pretty successful for us. The one piece of it that a lot of people have a hard time trying to figure out is, what do you do with your conference tournament? Ours is not a divisional play, so it's not
right.
6 teams on this side, 6 on this, double on this side, single on the other. We don't play that from a geographic perspective, so it takes 3 years for you to be able to rotate through this the setup that we have. Therefore, it's an unbalanced schedule, and there's really no equity in to be able to determine who qualifies for the tournament, so we take everybody.
Yeah.
And that's a tough pill for people to swallow. There are a lot of leagues out there that don't do that.
Yep.
That's the only sport in our conference where we do that. We even gave the women the opportunity to play that schedule before we added Shenandoah. They chose not to do that philosophically, like they like the idea of being able to play each other twice. So some of it was left in the coaches' hands, and as a result, the women weren't all qualifying for the tournament. And it was an equity concern of the board, for certain, at the same time, we were giving the coaches the option to do it,
right?
And they didn't want to do it. But when we added Shenandoah, because of the percentages again, we felt like it was time to make that move, and we did. I've had a lot of success with it from the conference perspective. It's wonderful. You know, we're getting ready to go out 3 more years with our conference schedule and our play dates. And I guess to talk a little bit about your first point, you know, I don't like the fact that we play basketball games in the conference even before break.
Yeah.
And you know, because we are geographically located where we are, you know, we have more difficulty perhaps in finding non-conference games and quality non-conference games. Sometimes have to travel to do that, and the best time to do that, because everybody else is getting lodged into their conference contest, it is before break. So we do the best we can to provide our people with the flexibility to play those 2 or 3 games that we have listed before our exam break. They have the flexibility to play those on the week that we have them scheduled and or to play them prior to January 1, before we get into the bulk of our Wednesday Saturday format the rest of the way till the end of February in the conference tournament. So, you know, there's a flexibility piece to it. At the same time, there's some sensibility as to how early you start. And some of that we do leave in their hands, especially for the first couple games that we have scheduled in the rotation.
Very good. Well, I appreciate your insight. I got to let you go. As always, to give the guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who are tuning in?
Well, Dave, I appreciate all the work that you guys do with Division III athletics, and your work with Division III basketball is stellar, and we really appreciate all that you guys do, and certainly wish you the best, and look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at the Gallardi presentation.
Yeah, I will be there, though. You know, it's one of those weeks.
I'm sure it is, and
we're like ships passing in the night sometimes.
Safe travels.
Thank you.
We look forward to seeing you down here in Salem, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk about the city and the work that they've done. We're proud of it and thankful that the NCAA has given us the opportunity to host for these number of years in the future.
Well, thank you. I'm looking forward to traveling down I-81 until 2018 at this point.
Sounds good. Thanks,
all right,
Dave.
take care, Coach. Take care, Brad. Talk to you soon. Brad Bankston joining us from the commissioner from the ODAC, Old Dominion Athletic Conference. Appreciate you taking his time. We are way late. Coach Chris Graves has been patient. We will get him on the line here shortly to talk Birmingham-Southern basketball. We appreciate him being patient with us. As a result, we are going to take a break. You're listening to Hoopsville, presented by D3Hoops.com, the National Association of Basketball Coaches. Be back right after this.
We've got more schools than Division I, more fans than Division II, and more upsets than March Madness. There's 800 programs with over 11,000 games leading to 2 national championships. And we've been covering it all for over a decade. From Eastern to Occidental, from Puget Sound to Piedmont, from Southwestern to the University of New England, and from Hope to Calvin. Nobody covers Division III basketball like we do. D3Hoops.com at www.d3hoops.com.
I know sports is important, but having the academic part along with it is a big plus.
I've discovered in myself a newfound ability to overcome adversity at all different angles.
At a Division III school is really shaped around you developing yourself as a complete individual. The end result in my mind is you just become a very well-rounded person.
Before I came into college, I didn't really think I'd be able to balance so much. It helps a lot that you have a family with your team that can guide you.
With a D3 school, there's a lot of time for opportunities. The coaches expect a lot of you during your soccer. That's your own personal time to really find out who you are and other opportunities that you can pursue.
By balancing all of my interests, basketball, my leadership skills, and academics, I'm able to better prioritize my life and to manage it.
And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody. Hope you're having a good Thursday night. Thanks again to Brad Bankston for the long conversation there. It was really a good one. It gives you a little bit of insight into how the whole process worked out for Salem to be hosting once again. We appreciate him taking the time to do that. Looking forward to it. If you are within driving distance of Salem, or even if it's a long drive for you, or if you feel like grabbing a flight, I know that's not easy, go to Salem. The Stagg Bowl is worth it. And start now, as basketball fans, start penciling in March for the NCAA championships, the Final Four. It's going to be the weekend of the 21st, 22nd. Those are when the games will be played. We'll be out there with Hoopsville on the 20th. We'll get there on Wednesday. We'll travel out back home Sunday and hopefully have a show as well. But I highly encourage you to go to these things, even if you don't have a dog in the race, as Coach pointed out, or as Brad pointed out. It is worth going. This is a great city. They do a wonderful job. There is a reason that the NCAA keeps selecting them to host the Stagg Bowl, host the men's basketball championship, host softball, and pick up other sports as well in other divisions as well. It is worth to do it, even if it's a bucket list item. I highly suggest, even if you don't have a dog in the fight, as it were, to do that. So please take the time to do that. We are behind schedule, so we won't waste too much more time. We know Coach Chris Graves from Birmingham-Southern has been patient, so we go to the Hoopsville hotline, and joining us there is Coach Chris Graves from Birmingham-Southern, 4-1 on the season. Coach, welcome to Hoopsville.
Thank you for having me. Excited to talk to you.
I appreciate you taking the time. We somehow forgot to get you when you were at the Hoopsville Classic, where you guys went 1-1, defeating, or you lost to Salisbury in a barn burner early on in that one. Early, I should say, the first game, 75-72 there, and then you beat Stevenson, who had just beaten Middlebury, 70-69. So coming out of that, and then the rest of the way, you got a win over Millsaps. You had started with wins over Spalding and a big win over Emory, 90-76. So it looks like the Panthers are playing pretty good basketball right now.
Well, I think we're a team that's definitely getting better. I don't know that we're playing great basketball yet, but we've been fortunate enough to win some close games and play to, start off the season with Spalding and Emory, who are both South Region teams that were in the NCAA tournament last year, and felt good to get those victories, and then came up to the Hoopsville NIT tournament, which I tell you guys did a tremendous job with that. Our guys had a great experience. Stevenson and Coach Stewart did a great job hosting it, and we just couldn't have had a better experience up there.
Well, I appreciate the kind words. I mean, the win over Salisbury, or the loss to Salisbury, was certainly interesting. I mean, everybody, except for two teams, came out of there 1-1. Then you get Stevenson there. But then, coming up ahead, you've got Birmingham. I'll try that again. You'll play Covenant and then Huntington. Then on the other side of the break, you'll go to Ashland, Virginia, where you'll play Randolph-Macon and Guilford before you get another game against Emory. And then head into conference play. You guys are not shying away with non-conference action this year.
No, we're doing everything we can to build up our strength of schedule and go play NCAA tournament quality teams in order to try to build our schedule and build our team. We hope that this will turn out in a team that's pretty good come January and February.
Yes, obviously this is a team a few years removed. Or not even a few years removed. Last year you didn't make the tournament, but a couple years ago you guys made it to the first round of the NCAA tournament, 25-3, 20-8 last year, 23-4 back in 10 and 11, 20-5 back in 9 and 10. Your introduction to the NCAA was, or Division III, I should say, was certainly successful. And now you're in a new conference in the SAA in its second year. The Panthers have certainly declared themselves pretty nicely so far. Where do you see this program going down the road here?
I think our goal here is to continue to build on the tradition that has been here for a long time. We've won 2 national championships and 17 conference championships in the last 25 years, and we hope that we can continue to just compete on that national level. And we really enjoy the fact that we're in the NCAA Division III and think that it's a really nice fit, nice level for us, and in a great league with some good teams. I think that Center and Oglethorpe in our league are playing some great basketball right now, and it's a good fit and a great place. We hope that we can establish through not only our conference but our non-conference schedule that we're a team that hopes to make some runs in postseason in the near future.
Yeah, Oglethorpe's already played 10 games. They're going to take 10 and they beat Emory as well. They'll take 20 days off before they'll get back into play. Obviously, this year, again, not an automatic bid to the NCAA tournament. The SAA is only in its second season. You'll get that next year. Last year, basically, the championship game came down to you guys and Center ended up winning it and thus got into the NCAA tournament. How important is it that you guys cross all your T's and dot all your I's throughout the season so you can get a chance at making the NCAA tournament in a non-automatic qualifying year?
Yeah, I think you hit it on the head. As a Pool B participant. We just have to take care of all the business that we can and try to win as many of these games as we can and build our strength of schedule, because it's taken it all comes into account when it comes to that RAC and the NCAA tournament committee. They're going to look at the whole picture, and I think in the end the team, if all things being equal, if you win our conference tournament, you have a pretty good chance to get in. But certainly you can't be bad this time of year. You got to do everything you can to win these early season games. I think it really challenges us, as you spoke of earlier, to go out and seek quality non-conference opponents. And when you're located geographically where we are, that means you got to go on the road. And so that will make us a tested group when it comes January and February.
You got what I think is 5 seniors on this squad, 4 or 5. I've forgotten my own count, which I just did a moment ago. But you're led by a junior and a sophomore. Larry Thomas, a junior, 22 points a game, hauling in 6.6 rebounds a game, shooting 57%. Senior Griffin Champ next at 14.6, shooting 60% from the floor. Then it's a sophomore and Ross Welch, 12.6 points a game, shooting 53%. Of course, one of the top assist guys on the team. So you're getting contributions from just beyond your senior squad. How important is that?
Well, I think you got to see Larry play live. We think Larry might be one of the best players in the country. He is really special. Shoots the ball exceptionally well. Has enough diversity in his game that he can drive and pass. He's pretty athletic. And then what we saw up at the D3 Hoopsville NIT tournament was that Griffin Champ was awful good. He had 27 against Salisbury, and he's kind of got that old man's game that's really fun to watch. So we've got some leadership with guys that have been through battles. Larry was the leading scorer in our league last year, first-team all-conference guy. I think we've got enough veteran players that we've got a chance to be pretty good, but it also bodes well for our future that we are getting contributions not only out of those two guys, but we've also got a couple freshmen playing significant minutes, and Ross as a sophomore has been significant. So we feel good about the state of our program right now.
You're in your 3rd season as the head of the Panthers. Again, a lot of changes happen for a school that's only that far removed from entering Division III. I think so, in some people's minds, even though this is your 7th season in Division III, you're still a newcomer. What's the mentality on campus? How do you have a campus that's excited about this Panthers squad and other athletics? Is it something that's still a transition there about what exactly Division III athletics is?
I think on our campus, they absolutely love athletics. We have what may be the finest college president in the country. He used to be the Commandant of the Marine Corps, and he loves athletics. He loves everything it represents. So our campus is 100% behind it. We have great crowds. We draw well. They cover us in the local media, and really, because of the tradition of our basketball program specifically, they have treated us the same as they always have, which has been a blessing. Our area is really fired up about Division III and about Birmingham-Southern.
Is certainly looking forward to seeing success. How does this SAA shape up this year? You mentioned Oglethorpe, and we know they're 9-1 right now. Center 5-2 is always in the fray. Hasn't played a conference game yet. You've got the likes of Millsaps and Rhodes, who could always kind of lurk on you, even though Millsaps is 1-5. But how does this SAA shape up this year? And can this conference actually achieve maybe 2 teams in the NCAA tournament?
I think Center is very, very good this year. They return on every guy, and I think they had the South Region Newcomer of the Year and Blake Senta, who for you guys voted in that. I think they're very good, and I think we're strong. I think Oglethorpe's pretty strong. But in our league, there's quite a bit of equity. So there are a bunch of guys that can jump up and get you any night. There aren't many free ones. So I would hope that we'll get strong consideration if we continue to take care of business and 2 teams separate themselves from the pack. I think if we all beat each other, then probably only one team deserves to get in. But I do think that right now, at least, there are 3 or 4 really good teams in our league that should be getting some strong consideration.
When I look at the schedule, you played Stevenson on November 23rd, you played Millsaps on December 1st, and you don't play Covenant until tomorrow. It's a big gap with not a lot of games. How do you keep the team fresh for a couple games against Covenant and then Huntington before then taking another 2 weeks before you play Randolph-Macon?
Well, like many Division IIIs, we're really a strong academic liberal arts college, and they for finals here. They take finals for a period of 8 days, and we just like to allow our guys to focus on being student athletes. So we don't play during that time. It is a challenge to make sure that while they're pulling all-nighters for the classroom, that they're not completely losing focus with us. But we feel like it's well worth it so that they can succeed in both. It's one of the things that we've been proud of our guys, is not only our performance on the court, but even more importantly, their performance in the classroom. But we've been working hard. I hope we'll be ready. That's something that I'm really obviously nervous about, that big break and coming back with a couple games and then another big break before we go play, as you mentioned earlier, 3 really tough opponents in a row right out of the Christmas break. But I think our guys will be ready. We've got a veteran group who's been through this before, and we hope that they'll respond correctly.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time, despite me being extremely late getting a hold of you. 4-1 on the season, 1-0 in conference play. Again, coming up, Covenant on Friday, Huntington next week on, I believe that is Tuesday or Monday. Maybe I can't do math. And then Randolph-Macon at Randolph-Macon, and then Guilford there as well. Certainly looking forward to keeping track of the Panthers throughout the season, Coach. As always, we give our guests the final word. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
Well, my main thought would be, again, a thank you to you guys and to the guys at Stevenson for the job that you did with the Hoopsville NIT tournament, and even inviting us. It was a big honor for our program to get to come play, and what a tremendous event. It was handled in such a first-class manner, and our kids had a great experience, got to visit the White House and meet our local congressman and got to go play some good basketball. So we can't thank you enough for allowing us to be a part of what you guys are doing.
Well, thank you for coming. We certainly loved having you guys. Glad you could come out of that 1-1, as everybody almost did. Appreciate it, and good luck the rest of the season.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Coach Chris Graves from Birmingham-Southern joining us here on the Hoopsville Hotline. Appreciate him taking the time to do that. Again, the team is 4-1, and as we mentioned, Covenant and Huntington coming up, and then Randolph-Macon and Guilford after the Christmas break. Certainly worth watching them this season, as it looks like they could be making trip to the NCAA tournament. Remember, they were at the Transylvania first round weekend, and where we had tornadoes rolling through, and a major delay, almost 2+ hours on the first game that they were involved in. So let's just quickly check some scores while we were on the air. Amherst bounces back in men's basketball action, beating Babson 90-77. So the current, this says number 1 on this system, but that's flawed. The current number 7 team in the country, who was the former number 1 team in the country, gets the job done against Babson. Trying to see if there's any other scores that jump out at me. Not a lot going on, as we normally don't have a lot going on Thursday nights. Denison defeating Capital. That's interesting, 87-82 in men's basketball. Bridgewater State beat Anna Maria in a close one. On the women's side of things, number 4 Amherst defeats Bridgewater State 86-73. And then some other games going on as well. Those are the only top 25 teams in action, is the Amherst teams. So not a lot of anything that, that catches your attention, I should say. So interestingly enough, Johnson & Wales played Johnson & Wales today. And I'm a little late to the party. Did not realize that Johnson & Wales, which everybody knows is out of New England, very famous for being a culinary school amongst many other things, did not realize they had 4 campuses around country. I just thought maybe they were different schools, but it's all one institution, as it were. So Johnson & Wales of New England defeats Johnson & Wales of Colorado in women's basketball action. Sorry, the Colorado team, Denver team, defeated the New England team 56-54 there. So that's our show. I want to thank everybody. We have a few more things to take care of before we do that, but thanks to everybody who's come on the show. A reminder, we probably won't put an actual show together next week, as we are all down in Salem and Belle. I mean, Frank Rossi, Pat Coleman, myself, and many of the other D3 football staff will be there. Gordon Mann will be back home running the D3 website, but we're not going to be crazy enough to say, hey, Gordon, do Hoopsville too. So I'm not sure we'll probably actually get a show on. I every year aim at saying I'll do a show and then realize I've got no chance. So I'm not going to make promises we're going to do a show on Thursday, but we'll certainly do our best if something comes up to try and arrange something. So we aren't on the air officially now until January 5th, when we will return with Sunday and Thursday shows. That being said, we will be at the D3Hoops.com Classic in Las Vegas. Again, 18 teams will be there. We will do vignettes with every coach and some players there as well from men's and women's teams who are involved there. We will be streaming those games as well. So that will be your Hoopsville fix, as it were, over the holidays. And obviously we'll be on Twitter breaking news and stuff like that at D3Hoopsville using the hashtag Hoopsville. Of course, on Facebook at facebook.com/Hoopsville as well. So then on January 5th, we will be back with our normal 2-hour shows twice a week on Sundays and Thursdays. All the way through the championships in Salem and Stevens Point. We also may or may not do a 12-hour show. More information on that coming, but look for that early in January, potentially. Lots more to discuss about that, but look for news on D3 Hoops or news on Twitter regarding that. Before we go, we always do a Hoopsville rant, and this time, per what I was talking to with Brad Bankston about conference schedules, they're frustrating me a little bit. The conference schedules are starting to creep earlier and earlier and earlier into the seasons. And for some, I understand why. For others, I don't get why. The ASC went and got rid of their divisions this year, so they're playing 22 games of the 25 they're allotted in conference action. The Minnesota Conference, and I'm blanking on which one it was off the top of my head, is playing 20 games in conference, roughly. The MIAA, you remember Gordon and I talking about it a few weeks ago, played Hope versus Calvin in women's basketball on November 19th. That was a conference game. That wasn't one of those where Hope and Calvin were at the same basketball tournament like we've seen happen because of their geography and ended up in a championship game or something, and it was a non-conference game. It was a conference scheduled game 4 days into the start of the season. It's too early. I'm looking at dates next year of first conference games November 22nd. That's a week into the season. There are problems with this. There are problems because for some, you're not allowing teams to get good non-conference action in either before conference action takes place or at a time when conference action isn't, or non-conference action isn't a great option, like the holidays. Well, you're not playing conference games then for a reason. You're not playing non-conference games there for a reason. These conferences are starting to get a little bit too early and a little bit too spread out. Now, I understand that some coaches don't like to play 3 games a week, and you get into a conference scenario sometimes where that might be mandated because you don't have enough games, or you have too many games, I should say, to try and fill out. But in my book, there's got to be a better solution. We should not be playing games on November 19th, November 22nd, or anything along those lines. It doesn't make any sense. And then I see something curious. In the MAC Commonwealth next year, unless something has changed since I looked at it, I believe they're starting on the 22nd of November. And then every team has 2 byes. Do you know why they have 2 byes? Elizabethtown leaves the conference next season for the Landmark. And I go out on a limb. I've not talked to anybody, but I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm going to suspect that the MAC Commonwealth came out with its schedule, a year and a half ago maybe for this year? And then when Elizabethtown announced they were leaving in 2 years, all they did was take the Elizabethtown games out of the schedule. So you're starting your games on November 22nd, and presumably the 2 byes are because those are where the Elizabethtown games were supposed to be played. What kind of scheduling is that? That's not fair to the teams, because if you got a game late in the season that's your bye, you're not going to find anybody to play or anybody you want to play that's going to help your SOS. So in other words, everybody's going to be out at least 1 game on their schedule, or they're going to have a bye in a strange spot in their schedule. They're going to be out of the game because they don't know where to schedule a game to begin with. The Hoopsville National Invitational Classic next year will take place the weekend before Thanksgiving, just like this year. And the year after that, in 2015, it will be the weekend before Thanksgiving. But we have conference schedules that are interfering with our tournament. We're not the only tournament that's going to interfere. In 2015, the 15th, I believe, is on Sunday. While I'm talking about that, I'll double check that. So who's going to play conference, non-conference tournaments that a lot of schools have at that time of year? It is on a Sunday. They're going to do it on Thanksgiving weekend. Well, if conferences are scheduling games that weekend, these tournaments are null and void, because you don't want to play a conference opponent at your own tournament. Who's going to want to come to it? These conference schedules are getting out of hand. Now, Brad Bankston talked about why they went to an off-balanced scheduling scenario for the ODAC, and it makes complete sense. The ASC should take this into account. The Midwest schools that have too many conferences should take this, or teams should take this into account. Find a way to schedule where you still have a lot of conference games, but you don't have them take up the entire schedule, and you aren't doing them early. Brad Bankston pointed it out himself. He doesn't even like the fact that there's games in conference action before the holiday break. I'm all for it. I remember when we had most of your conference schedule, and a lot of conferences still do this, in January and beyond. You might have one, maybe two games before that, and they were usually in early December. You weren't playing conference games before Thanksgiving. It makes no sense. You are doing your conference, you're doing your teams, you're doing the landscape of basketball a disservice. These games are too early. Let's get a grip. Now, I have one theory that doesn't hold water for the entire country, but one theory I have had is that one of the biggest problems that the East Coast has had, or at least the Northeast has had with this scheduling thing, is the ECAC. If memory serves, and please correct me if this has changed, to qualify for an ECAC postseason game, which means you have not made the NCAA tournament, and you're playing still conference games, and that's a whole nother conversation, or a tournament postseason games, whole nother conversation, because the ECAC doesn't pay for a penny of those. You have to take a 2-week period of time off at some point in your season. Most people do it around the holidays. As a result, schools who want to participate in the ECAC, for whatever reason, that's a whole nother conversation for another day, take these 2-week breaks. Well, they can't play non-conference action then either. So they got to figure out when they're going to play non-conference action. So as a result, it puts pressure on the conferences to schedule accordingly to allow their schools to fit their non-conference games in. You see my point? This could be a problem, but that doesn't explain the MIA having Hope versus Calvin women's basketball on November 19th. It doesn't explain the MAC Commonwealth having a game on November 22nd. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Can we fix the conference scheduling? If you're too big a conference, take a page out of the ODAC's book. Don't take a page necessarily out of the NESCAC's book, but take a page out of the ODAC's book. Or other conferences you might find interesting outside of Division III, like the ACC. Take a page out of their book, see how they do their conference scheduling, and see how it is actually a benefit. The ODAC inadvertently has a great benefit. I'm not saying I don't like double round robins. But if the conference is too big, the double round robin does not work. I like the double round robin in an 8-team conference. I like the double round robin in maybe a 9-team conference. I don't like the double round robin in a 10-team conference or beyond. It's too many games. You're hurting your conference. Think about the ASC for a second. They're playing 22 of 25 allotted games in conference. It allows 3 non-conference games. For some Texas schools who cannot travel and cannot find other opponents, they are not playing Division III opponents in those 3 games. So their resume, when it comes to regional rankings and the selection process, will only be their conference. Take that another step further. Mary Hardin-Baylor, Texas Dallas, some of these schools in the ASC who are very good schools have 3 games to bolster their SOS. Just 3 games. Because considering your SOS in the conference is probably going to be around 500, all the numbers equal out. They're going to have 3 games to bolster their SOS. You think it's tough to schedule as it is and hope that teams are going to be good so that your SOS is good and hope those good teams play good teams so that the opponent winning percentage is good? You've got 3 games. You are playing roulette with 3 games. The ASC is not going to get at large bids. It's just the reality of things. I would be shocked if the ASC gets more than its automatic bid this year, no matter how many teams are good. We're going to leave a good ASC team home because their strength of schedule is going to be lousy. And it's no fault of those teams. It's the fault of the conference and some of the teams who are driving the ship in that conference who insist that they play 22 games. I had a discussion with some coaches about that. And my argument was I understood why some schools who can't travel want to make sure they get 22 games. That's fine. But you know what? Put the onus on them. If they don't want to travel, they can find a conference opponent, play another game if they want to, and make it a non-conference game. That's their own problem. Don't punish the top schools who you are punishing by playing 22 games in conference. The scheduling is getting ridiculous. If the MAC Commonwealth wasn't created enough to just remove Elizabethtown from the schedule, that's ridiculous. If the MIAA cannot find a way to schedule their women's basketball program better, that they have to put Hope Calvin on November 19th, and I'm not just talking Hope Calvin, I'm talking about all the games that were played on November 19th in the MIAA women's basketball. That's ridiculous. If the conferences who are playing 20 or more games, even 18 or more games in conference, it's ridiculous. You are doing yourselves and your schools a disservice. Maybe I'm the minority here, but I don't want to hear people complaining to me that somebody from the ASC deserved to be in the NCAA tournament. The conference did it to them. It's plain and simple. And I'm really getting tired of seeing schools in conference action pretty much when the season tips off. Can we push it back and let these teams play non-conference opponents and then let them go into conference play later in the season? It's a little bit better that way, don't you think? Because the game between Hope and Calvin on November 19th has a ton riding on it. And you want your teams to be better than just what practice allowed them to be. And I'm pretty sure it's hard to schedule a tournament and play 2 games on the 15th and 16th if you know you got Hope or Calvin on the 19th. Just my 2 cents and my Hoopsville rant. Thanks to Coach Bob Semling from University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point for joining us tonight. Also Scott Coval from DeSales. Also want to thank Dan Raymond from Ithaca. And also Chris Graves, I should say, from Birmingham-Southern. And, of course, Brad Bankston, commissioner from the ODAC. Appreciate everybody who joined us here on Hoopsville. Thank you for tuning in as we went a little bit into overtime. We appreciate it. Again, may or may not have any Hoopsville elements next week as we are involved with the Stagg Bowl, but also we will have stuff at the D3Hoops.com Classic. We are booking up for the Hoopsville National Invitational Classic for next season. If you are interested, let us know. Doesn't mean we're guaranteeing you're going to get in, but if you're interested in playing, we can talk. But of course, if you're interested in playing the D3Hoops.com Classic, we can talk as well. And of course, we'll be back on the air, our normal Sunday and Thursday schedule, starting January 5th. It seems like a long way out, but trust me, it will be here soon. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Appreciate your patronage of the show. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville and hashtag Hoopsville, Facebook.com/Hoopsville. And, of course, you can email us at Hoopsville@D3Hoops.com. Thank you for tuning in. Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches and is a DMAC Productions production. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you back here in the new year.